To introduce these citation lessons, we're going to first start off by thinking about why citation matters and where these citations come from. To help y'all understand the importance of citation, I want to start off by thinking about details we might think don't really matter, but might end up being quite important in the long run. Van Halen, the rock band, had in the early 80s in their tour rider, in other words, the contract they executed with a venue that said what kinds of amenities the band should have backstage, everywhere that they went, that in every dressing room on their tour, there had to be a bowl of M&Ms, and the brown M&Ms had to be removed. When you hear that story, you might think that this shows that Van Halen were spoiled rock stars, that they were such a big deal that even small and petty requests would be granted because Van Halen were such a big, terrific group of musicians who know how to play chords and rock a whole arena and make folks go crazy. Touring musicians are really reliant on concert promoters to give them everything that they need to put on a great show. Personnel, the PA, basic technical details. As music fans, if you're a music fan like me, you might focus on the fun details about what needs to be made available in the dressing room. But a big part of the rider isn't really what's in that bowl, whether it's M&Ms or guacamole or whatever. But a big part of the rider is making sure that the venue has enough electricity to make sure that the show does not end after 10 minutes. In reality, Van Halen's brown M&M clause was genius. If the concert promoter didn't comply with the technical details of the rider, the stage could collapse. It could be a dangerous and deadly situation. The M&Ms were really a way to check that all the specifics of the contract were met, including the technical details and the safety details that are the really, really important parts if you're a member of the band. Van Halen was one of the first bands to take huge productions into what are called tertiary or third level markets. As David Lee Roth described it, he says the band would pull up with 9 18-wheeler trucks full of gear where the standard was 3 trucks max, and there were many, many technical errors, whether it was the girders couldn't support the weight, or the flooring would sink in, or the doors weren't big enough to move the gear through. The contract rider read like a version of what he called the Chinese Yellow Pages because there was so much equipment and so many human beings to make it function. So just as a little test in the technical aspect of the rider, Van Halen's rider would say, Article 148, there will be 15 amperage voltage sockets at 20-foot spaces evenly, providing 19 amperes, that kind of thing. And Article 126, in the middle of nowhere, would say, there will be no brown M&Ms in the backstage area upon pain of forfeiture of the show with full compensation. So, when David Lee Roth would walk backstage, if he saw a brown M&M in that bowl, well, as he puts it, line check the entire production. Guaranteed you're going to arrive at a technical error. They didn't read the contract. Guaranteed you'd run into a problem. Sometimes it would threaten to just destroy the whole show. Something like literally life-threatening. Nonetheless, the media ran exaggerated and inaccurate accounts of Van Halen's using the violations of the No Brown M&Ms clause as justification for engaging in childish, destructive behavior. And of course, David Lee Roth was right. He described a show in Pueblo, Colorado, at the university there, which is now, I think, Colorado State University. That institution took the contract rider kind of casual in the early 1980s. And as David Lee Roth described it, they had one of these new rubberized bouncy basketball floors in their arena, and they hadn't read the contract, and they weren't sure really about the weight of this production. Their stage weighed like the business end of a 747. David Lee Roth says he goes backstage, he finds some brown M&Ms, and he, as he put it, went into full Shakespearean, what is this before me? You know, with the Hamlet skull in one hand, and promptly trashed the whole dressing room, dumped the buffet, kicked a hole in the door, $12,000 worth of fun. In reality, the staging sank through their floor. They didn't bother to look at the weight requirements or anything, and this sank through their new flooring and did $80,000 worth of damage to the arena floor. The whole thing had to be replaced. It came out in the press that I discovered brown M&Ms and did $85,000 worth of damage to the backstage area. Well, who am I to get in the way of a good rumor, as David Lee Roth describes it? What does this sad tale of M&Ms have to teach us about the practice of law and what attorneys do? Well, we attorneys use citation for two main reasons. First, to provide the reader with a specific authority within our text, and second, to replace long explanations of how that authority is used. If you're citing properly, you are establishing your credibility as a careful legal writer and thinker, and more importantly, your writing is cleaner and more direct and easier to read. Things that will serve you very well in earning high marks in your legal writing classes, but they'll serve you even better out in practice when you're earning a living, developing your professional reputation, and representing your clients. The secret to great citation in your writing, it really isn't very surprising. You have to read the rules, you have to develop good habits, and you have to make attention to this critical detail of focus of your attention, even though it may seem as mundane and frivolous as sorting M&Ms. Where do these citation rules come from? There are a couple of traditional legal writing texts that we use in the United States. The first and probably most widely used is known as the Blue Book. It is published by Harvard and a cohort of other prominent law schools. There's also a competing version that is published by the Association of Legal Writing Directors that has their own guide. My preferred text, which is free and is open source, is called the Indigo Book. And whatever text your professor or supervisor out in practice recommends, you're going to get to the same result with all three of these texts. And you are going to achieve great results by carefully reading the rules, having a good process, and paying close attention to the details. In the lessons which are going to follow, I'll walk you through how to cite cases, how to cite statutes, how to cite constitutions, and how to save yourself time by shortening these citations when appropriate.